Good morning. It's the regularly scheduled Board of Fire Commissioners. Date is April 2nd. The time is 9:05.
Let the record reflect Commissioners Ibada, Glacier, Hada, Nimberg, Woodsbury are present, and we have a quorum. Madam President.
Thank you. Flag salute, moment of silence.
Right hand over your heart, ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in a moment of silence in honor of past and present members of the Los Angeles Fire Department who devoted their lives to the protection of our community. Thank you.
So let's begin with Commissioner comments.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the LAFD paramedics for their work in my community last night, because that was quite a violent situation, as we all saw on television. But they were so much closer to the violence, their lives were really in danger, and so I'm happy. I don't think our members were hurt, and but some of the police officers, I do believe, were hurt. But I do thank them for their bravery, for getting out there, setting up triages in places where there were no, they couldn't get people to safety, so they just started working on people. And I love that attitude that they will try to make it work regardless to where they are. So I thank the LAFD for that work and trying to help to protect the people in that community. And I hope that they'll calm down after last night. But it's unpredictable. There's unpredictable situations going on, so we can never really tell. I did also go on Saturday to the recruitment summit, and our recruitment department rocks. I tell you, they're rocking over there. They had a great turnout and lots of people there. People who were very energetic. I got there a little late, but I did get to see some of the people and talk to some of the people who were interested in becoming firefighters, and they seemed very interested in what they wanted to do there. And so I thank the recruitment department for actually continuing to put on these outstanding events and to attract people and bring them in so they can actually learn. And people were really learning new things and asking lots of questions. So that was really good. Also, I wanted to mention that the CERT department, Sunday before last, at my church, we had a CERT team out there, and we had a drill. So that was really, I was happy to see that, because not often do we see them out doing this in institutions like this, but it's a great place for them to be, I think, because even in churches where we have a lot of people on Sundays, if there's an emergency, they may not know how to exit the building correctly. So it was good to see. We have a retired police officer who's a member of the church who's organized the CERT people. They had training and everything. But all of a sudden from the front they said there's an emergency and we had to exit and follow these people. So it was great training and a good experience, and I hope that other churches and other public institutions will practice that too, because some of them have thousands of people in those institutions on a Sunday morning, and so it would be good for them to think about how they exit if there is an emergency. So I thank the CERT people for their training, and it was a surprise to see them there, but I was happy to see them there.
Thank you.
Morning. So I do also want to commend the first responders yesterday. That was an unbelievable tragedy, and the fact that they were able to respond so efficiently and so effectively is a testament to the world-class nature of this department. So thank you. Also, as a recent constituent in need of your services, I want to thank you all for your response the last meeting. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. Couldn't have happened at a better place. And I also wanted to say that I got to spend the evening with a few chiefs here as well, going to the 50th anniversary of EMS for the county, and that was great. Got to see Dr. Eckstein, and it was really fantastic, and a really great celebration of how EMS has integrated itself into this department, so into county and city as well. So thank you. That's it.
Great. Yes.
The cert. Oh no, that wasn't the right one. I thought I had the card for the guy.
All right. Report of the fire chief.
Thank you, Madam President. This past Saturday was a busy day. First thing in the morning, I went to Fire Station 89 to participate in the St. Baldrick's Day event. And all the money raised is for research in preventing childhood cancer. And I was asked if I would shave my head, and I said I would for $25,000, and then I wasn't asked anymore. So, great turnout, very proud of the people involved. Danny Wu, Captain Danny Wu is the lead from LAFD, and Greg Doyle from LAPD. So it's the 17th year we've done it. Wally Brigham started it way back when, and it's continued getting better, bigger and better every year. From that, we went to the annual LAPD Cesar Chavez recognition event at Lincoln Park, and well attended, very professional, a lot of inspirational speakers at that event. And then I closed out that day by passing by the Firefighter Recruitment Summit. And there were 1,400 people signed up throughout the day. They had multiple sessions. I got there around 2 o'clock, and there was around 300 candidates still there. And I told them, this is a marathon. You are competing with thousands of applicants for hundreds of jobs. And I let them know what we're looking for when we look for a candidate. And I told them all the basics about stay in school, get good grades, go on to college, become a paramedic, join the military, and that I get to pick on a weekly basis who gets a job offer. Very impressed with the range of people there. Some people are looking actively right now. They showed up in suit and tie, and others are just barely getting out of high school, and they're not sure what they want to do. But I'm very grateful to our recruitment section for putting this event on and letting people know right now what it takes to become a firefighter. So I'm very inspired by the people that were there, and I too want to recognize our recruitment section. Chief Rideout and his people did a great job. That concludes my report.
Great, thank you. So moving on to verbal report with the department on significant incidents from March 19th to April 1st.
Good morning, Madam President,
Good morning.
Commissioners, Chief Terrazas. I am presenting verbal report on significant incidents and activities for the 2-week period March 19 through April 1st, 2019. During this period, we responded to a total of 18,932 emergency dispatches. We transported a total of 8,484 patients to local hospitals. On Sunday, March 24th, a large contingent and commitment of LAFD resources in unified command with the Los Angeles Police Department and our Department of Transportation, along with resources from Los Angeles County, Beverly Hills, and Santa Monica, provided safety and security and EMS for an estimated 20,000 participants in the LA Marathon, along with visitors. These events require months of planning and coordination and a huge commitment of our resources. We staffed and dedicated a field incident management team to this effort, and under the command of Assistant Chief Tim Ernst, they performed admirably. And while we always encounter dozens of people needing medical attention and transportation, it went very smoothly. There were no major incidents and no bad outcomes. On Sunday, March the 31st, around 3:30 p.m., LAFD resources from our South Bureau responded to a multi-patient shooting at 3325 West Slauson Avenue in Hyde Park. Our resources treated and transported 3 patients in that shooting event. This incident proved to garner national media attention, and tragically, entertainer rapper known as Nipsey Hussle was shot and ultimately lost his life in that event. Subsequent to that, on Monday, April 1st, last night, around 10:15 p.m., LAFD resources along with Los Angeles Police Department were dispatched to reports of a shooting and stabbing injuries. The location was 3325 West Slauson Avenue, where a vigil was being held for slain entertainer rapper Nipsey Hussle. The crowd became agitated at some point, and there was a stampede of sorts where multiple people were injured. We had a deputy chief, an assistant chief, and 3 battalion chiefs assigned to this event under the command of Deputy Chief Ronnie Villanueva and Assistant Chief Katie Kepner. Several fire resources and 14 ambulances on scene. Very, very large commitment of resources for one event. We ultimately transported at least 19 patients to 7 area hospitals with 4 serious injuries and 15 minor injuries. But I want to point out that none of those injuries were gunshot wounds. They were all injuries from the stampede. I want to thank Commissioner Woods Gray for highlighting the outstanding work of our firefighters and paramedics at that event. That's the end of my report unless you have questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we have a report by the medical director for the same time period.
Good morning, Commissioners, Fire Chief, City Attorney, Dr. Mark Eckstein, Medical Director. Significant EMS incident since the last meeting. I know the incident that Chief Poyer mentioned, it's garnered a lot of media attention, but there's an incident I wanted to highlight that I thought was particularly tragic on the same day of that shooting in the same neighborhood on March 31st this year, approximately 9 p.m. in 57's First Inn. A five-year-old boy with a history of asthma collapsed and died at home. Obviously very tragic, very difficult for our members to deal with. But the fact that a 5-year-old boy can die from asthma in the city of LA in 2019, I think underscores the need for better medical care and preventive medical care in underserved communities of this city. So particularly tragic that breakdown of the entire system that a 5-year-old lost his life from asthma. On a brighter note, 2 wonderful saves I wanted to highlight, underscoring the chain of survival. All of our efforts on EMS and the fire department has really been focused on predominantly strengthening the chain of survival to save lives. On March 29th, about 7:30 p.m. in 74's First Inn, a 34-year-old male was complaining of chest pain and shortness of breath, was unfortunately driving himself to the hospital when he went unresponsive. We were fortunate that Light Force 74 is an ALS assessment light force. They were first on scene, provided both basic and advanced life support, followed by Rescue 77. They were able to successfully defibrillate this gentleman, provide advanced care, and transport him to the nearest STEMI center where he went to the cath lab and was in stable condition. On March the 30th, about 7:30 a.m. in the Van Nuys area, 39's First Inn, a 41-year-old male was witnessed to have collapsed in the street. And not uncommonly, the bystander who saw this, who called 911, described the patient as having seizures or seizure-like activity. And one of the tenets of our tiered dispatch system is really recognizing cardiac arrests, which is counterintuitive, but most cardiac arrests are subtle in nature. When people go down in the street or suddenly, it's not obvious that they're dead, and they often have what's called agonal breathing or occasional ineffective breathing. And these individuals often have seizure-like activity due to the lack of oxygen to the brain. I can tell you from being an expert in the field, I would say many, if not most, dispatch systems in the country still miss these cases, and the dispatchers fail to provide CPR instructions. Our dispatcher/telecommunicator using tier dispatch system recognized this seizure-like activity was associated with ineffective breathing, dispatched this as an immediate dispatch in 48 seconds, and instructed the caller to immediately provide compression-only CPR, which is just chest compressions. And then Engine Rescue 39 arrived on scene, defibrillated this 41-year-old gentleman who not only was resuscitated, but was awake, alert, and talking prior to transport with the STEMI to the STEMI center, where he also underwent cardiac catheterization, received stents, and is expected to make a full recovery. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on now to presentations.
Good morning, Commissioners, Fire Chief Terrazas, City Attorney, Ms. Iniguez, Eric Scott, Captain and Public Information Officer. Today we have an excellent presentation, and we're honored to recognize the members from Fire Station 69 in the Pacific Palisades area for providing life-saving measures to a 47-year-old male that was just having a routine day at work but ended up in a very lethal heart rhythm. And at this point, we'd like to invite up these members, firefighter paramedics Robert Miller and Octavio Severa, to join us at the platform, firefighters Daniel Garcia and Douglas Peterman, and engineer Timothy Tognieri. And the incident that took place was actually pretty recent. It was on January 21st. Again, it was a routine day for Mr. Bell. He's a 47-year-old. He used to work with LAPD for 10 years, and now as a screenwriter. He was at work in his office building on the second story when he started to have some severe chest pain. Fortunately, he did quickly call 911, even though he doesn't remember it to this day. And Fire Station 69 is just 2 blocks away. So they very quickly responded. These members behind me recognized the patient's level of severity. They immediately provided advanced life support care, and they also utilized a stair chair to bring him down to the ambulance so he didn't have to walk and further exacerbate his cardiac condition. And then really, as they were driving to the hospital with lights and sirens is where things took a change for the worse. And he suddenly became unconscious, and he went into a very lethal heart rhythm. And this will kind of show you what happens to the heart as it goes into what's called ventricular tachycardia and also ventricular fibrillation, where it does not perfuse appropriately. So what had happened is these medics yelled to the driver up front, immediately pull over. They were near an intersection. The engine pulled behind them. They blocked the traffic to create a safe environment, and they provided electrical shock to that quivering heart. They defibrillated the patient several times, I believe 13 times. Ultimately, they shocked the individual, provided CPR, and rushed off to the emergency room. Fortunately, shortly after the patient's arrival, he did get a return of spontaneous circulation. So that quivering heart began to beat again. And the members there at the ER stated that if it were not for the actions by these members behind me, that patient would not have survived. So the following actions are what were really instrumental to having a successful outcome. They had an accurate dispatch, like Dr. Eckstein was mentioning from our dispatchers. There was early recognition that we did, in fact, have a critical patient, even though he was conscious to begin with. There's immediate application of advanced life support care, and they enacted the proper treatment protocols. They selected the appropriate hospital destination for that, what's a STEMI center to handle that type of a cardiac event. And of course, it was really because of the outstanding work of these members that we had a positive outcome, and certainly that is worthy of recognition. But it's not over yet. As a surprise, actually, we do have the cardiac arrest survivor, Mr. Will Bell, and his wife Elizabeth Bell, that is here to reunite with these members and briefly make a couple statements. This is another amazing story. Dr. Eckstein described 2 similar stories, and then Captain Scott reiterated the chain of survival. And at every step, everything went right. Will made the call. He doesn't remember it, but he made the call. The dispatcher took the call. They immediately dispatched within 48 seconds and then started doing CPR instructions. Simultaneously, Engine and Rescue 69 are being dispatched. And they were luckily just a few blocks away, so I imagine they got on scene within just a couple of minutes. And then they immediately do what we do. They recognize the situation, continue CPR, rapidly loaded him into the hospital, and transported him to a STEMI center. And because all the various elements of the chain of survival were done in a rapid and effective manner, Will is here today to share his story. And before I walked in here, I met Will and Elizabeth, and they asked how could they show their thanks to the men and women of our department for what they had experienced. And I told them it's thanks enough just to be here and allow us to tell their story. We don't always have a successful outcome. As Dr. Eckstein shared with us, the 5-year-old little boy who died from asthma. And unfortunately, we encounter more of those than we do the success stories. So this is a success story. It's inspirational for the men and women of our department. And it makes me very, very proud that our system is working and it's getting better all the time. So I want to add my congratulations to the members of Fire Station 69 and thank Will for allowing us to tell his story. And with that, I'd like to turn the mic over to Will for his personal comments. Congratulations, Will. Glad that you're here.
I wrote something. Good morning.
Good morning.
I am incident number 965, 47-year-old male experiencing severe chest pains. And I suppose it goes without saying that if you hadn't shown up when you did, I would be dead. In fact, I think I was dead at some point. My heart stopped anyway, but you didn't let that stop you. You didn't give up on me. Continued your work all the way to the hospital. And because of you, my 3 children still have a father. In fact, just a few weeks later, my daughter's kindergarten class had their field trip to Station 69. My wife chaperoned. And she told me by then the worst and most miraculous thing that's ever happened to me was already just a couple notes scribbled in a captain's logbook, top of the page, right before the fallen tree blocking Rivas Canyon Road. Incident number 965, just another tragedy averted, another total stranger who owes you his life. But I suppose that's the job, to enter the stage at the darkest hour, show up at the worst moment in somebody's life and do everything, risk everything to help people you've never seen before and will never see again. And so I thank you for saving my life. And now, if you'll forgive me, I'm also going to take this moment and presume to speak for the hundreds, maybe thousands of people like me that you encounter over the course of your career, who may never get a chance to say it, because not all of us make it. But we would like to say thank you. Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your compassion. And thank you for choosing this noble profession.
Wasn't prepared for any speech or anything, but some patients make it easy on you. We walked in to see Mr. Bell at a little sweaty after our workout, and kind of looked like just a routine chest pain. We'll run to the hospital. Once we looked at the EKG and noticed a STEMI, basically everything was bumped up from then. When you work with guys like this, everybody just did their job. They knew exactly what to do, what we needed, and it went along very, very easily. So we just thank you for being the patient that you were and all the help that we get from our coworkers. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I'm trying to buy a Jeep right now. The acronym stands for just empty every pocket.
Oh, we did. Huh?
Isn't that amazing? You know what? It's like a heart attack.
Okay.
It's so much.
Commissioner, on this
Yeah.
presentation, I thought his words were so on point, and then I remembered he's a writer,
Right.
and I thought, and I asked his permission. He gave it to me. I'm gonna put this out so all our members can hear his story. It is very inspirational, and we're very grateful that he came here today and shared his story with us.
We are. Thank you. Okay. Can we do the consent agenda items?
Okay, move to adopt the recommendations for items 4A through 4C.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So our first regular agenda item is 5A. It's a report for the department on the mid-year budget report for fiscal year 2018-2019.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Mark Davis with the Administrative Services Bureau. Let me bend that slightly. The item you have before you here is the mid-year, the budget for the fiscal year 18-19. We had the mid-year in council this past month. We currently have a $7.1 million shortfall. But on a $700 million budget, that's about 1%. So we are 99% on budget. The shortfall is attributable to primarily the sworn overtime for the wildfires that we sent our folks out to July, August, and September, the first part of the fiscal year. Those are the reimbursements that we expect to get back to the department. Some of that in this fiscal year, some of it will come in the following fiscal year. We also have the reimbursements that we're getting back for the SAFER 16, and some Measure B funds that are coming back. On page 2 of this, you have a brief chart here that kind of shows a breakdown of the adopted budget and where we've gone from there. got the revenue here that's short by about $800,000, and again, out of $200 million, that's about half of 1%. So I think we'll close that gap before the end of the fiscal year. And then finally, at the end of page 2 there, you have the training classes that are coming up. We have the recruit training class 2 that will be ending here the first part of June, and then we will start class the number 3 at the end of June, and we'll go into the following the fiscal year. I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, so for the shortfall, we are anticipating getting the reimbursements.
We will be getting the reimbursement, for the wildfires that we sent our sworn staff up to Northern California and to all of the other fires that we had staff out at.
Okay, so it's just a matter of time of getting
Correct.
most of it in.
Correct.
All right.
Wait, sorry, just to clarify. So, is the revised revenue inclusive of reimbursements, or not inclusive of reimbursements that are expected?
The reimbursements account for a portion of that we can predict. The state is quite backlogged on doing the reimbursements, so they have told us that all of it may not come in as fast as they have in the past years. So we have a projected amount that we feel confident is coming in this year. There will probably be more of that coming in, so I would think that number will be going down.
Also, Madam President, this is not a new issue. Almost every year for the last 5 years, we run a shortfall primarily due to the state's delay in reimbursing us for our strike team deployments, and we've always been able to cover the majority of the gap. Actually, this year it's a smaller number than it's been in previous years. It's 7.1. I think previous years were like 15 to 20. So we're actually doing pretty well, and we'll continue to monitor this.
Yep. And it is trending down. This was as of December, so we are already trending down some from that, and we've kind of tightened up the belts on some of the purchases through the rest of the fiscal year. So I anticipate that the deficit to be coming down some.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, move to receive and file a recommendation for item 5A.
Second.
All in favor? So moving on to 5B, which is report by the independent assessor on the quarterly report of audits.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Sue Stengel, independent assessor. I'm presenting a quarterly report of pending audits consistent with the request you made back in February. As you can see, we are working on 2 audits. The information I've included is preliminary since our research on both audits is in its infancy. I would like to bring a couple of issues to your attention. First, regarding the audit of recruit progress in specified drill tower classes. The amount of documentation associated with the recruit population for classes 13-1 through 17-3 is not only voluminous for the department to produce, but also for us to process and analyze. Therefore, we are endeavoring to narrow the scope of the audit. We are working with data scientists from the city, evaluating the basic data to extract a meaningful sample. In the meantime, since the number of women in the audit population is relatively small, we believe whatever sample size we will use will include a large number of women. So we have asked the department to begin providing us with documentation related to female recruits. Recruit identifying information has been removed. Would you like to discuss this audit before I move on to the second issue?
Yeah. Why don't you move on to the second issue, and then we'll
do all
of them.
So second, regarding the audit of cases filed and closed in CTS and DTS in 2018, this is more of a question that I have for all of you rather than an issue. We would like to do two things with the audit of cases closed and filed in 2018. First, present you with statistics which are laid out in the preliminary objectives. And second, analyze some of the case investigations depending on what we see once we begin looking at the closed cases. I wanted to give you an option of seeing two separate audits, one that focuses more on statistics and one on case analysis. If we do two, you will get 2018 statistics much sooner. This may also allow us to incorporate some of your thoughts into the more in-depth analysis of the second audit. I would like to know what you think about this, and I'm also happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so can you describe what you mean by the two? 'Cause
Right, so what I'd like to do is split the 2018 case audit into two. One is merely, well, not merely, but really looking at statistics as I presented in the objectives. And then the second audit would be a much more thorough, in-depth analysis of case investigations.
Okay, so one is just like aggregate, like what kind of cases, that sort of
Right,
thing?
exactly. So as I presented in the objectives, the number of cases filed, what the categories look like, the number of, what the adjudications were, sustained, not sustained, et cetera, how many settlement agreements there were, what the number of pending boards of rights are, et cetera.
And then, so the second's going to be like more of a true audit, like you look at certain cases.
Right. So what we would probably do is based on this, then once we look at those statistics, then we might look at a category of case investigations. I don't know, hypothetically, driving under the influence cases. And then we would do a deep dive into those investigations and analyze those investigations and then present you with an audit later on in the year after we analyze those investigations.
I personally like that because then we can see kind of just from the data trends, like what's going to be more interesting for us.
Right. And then, I'm sorry. So for instance, we discussed at the last meeting cases sustained non-punitive. So we could look at those statistics at the first audit and see what those tell us, and then maybe then from those statistics look at some of the issues that you might be interested in for that second audit, and then do a deep dive in the analysis in that second audit.
Right. Okay, so I personally like that.
Yep, I support that approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's good. So that's the second one. So for the first one, so what do you mean by data scientists?
So I didn't know until I started this. The city actually has a group of data scientists that the mayor's office referred us to.
Okay.
And so they're going to help us look at some of the raw data that the department has provided us with and try to draw out a meaningful sample to look at so that we can reduce the size of the population.
Okay.
Of the classes that we have right now.
So, and where are these data scientists housed? Like, what department are they a part
I
of?
think they're in ITA.
Okay, interesting. All right. And so you're thinking about narrowing it down and just focusing on the women?
No.
Okay.
I don't actually know what the narrower scope will be like. I don't know whether we'll narrow it based on gender, race, ethnicity. We may actually narrow it based on tests. So, for instance, the drill tower is divided into, and I may look at Chief Rideout for a little bit of help. So it starts with basic operations, and then, forgive me, what's the second phase called? Thank you, practical applications. So we may actually narrow it in that way based on the tests. We may look at academics versus practical application. I'm not actually sure what we're going to end up narrowing it based on. But we're going to have them help us look at the raw data, both the test scores as well as the, what's the word I'm looking for? The demographics of the recruits. And see what that information yields with them.
Okay. And is the data in a form that we could share with them? I mean, is it even, is it in computer files? Because I don't know. I mean, my experience with the department is sometimes the data is not, it is?
It is.
Okay.
They have given us Excel spreadsheets that have been, I'm not sure this is a word, anonymized. And the department has given us permission to share the data with the city's data scientists. And we actually have a meeting set up with them this week. And so we've provided the spreadsheets to the data scientists, and we're going to work with them to manipulate the data and see what kind of data and samples we can come up with that will be meaningful.
Okay. So then my other concern about this was just kind of, I know that we've talked with the chief about the expense of just the manpower that the department has been devoting to sort of prepare the information. How's that going? Maybe that's a question for Chief.
Last I was briefed on that. We were up to about $75,000 of staff time, and I was committed to getting it done no matter what the cost. But I am in favor. We had a discussion recently about narrowing the focus because the records were so significant. And so I like what I'm hearing about using the data scientist. Our goal is to find out anything that we can use to become better. And whatever that takes within reason, we're going to support.
All right. Okay, so when do you think you're going to know what you think the focus is going to be?
I don't know. We have a meeting tomorrow with the data scientists, and so I should know better after our meeting tomorrow. I just don't know the answer to that right now.
Okay.
I will know more tomorrow.
All right, because that might be, worthwhile to just come back, sooner than in a quarter, to come back and just, kind of let us know what the focus is going to be. So maybe like, where are we? We're at April. So maybe June?
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll do that. And maybe just do this one specially.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, no, I think it's thorough. You know what? I think that we should just wait until after. I like the idea of waiting till after this meeting with the scientist team before we ask any in-depth questions, because I don't think we're even equipped to ask really good questions. How big is the team, by the way?
I've been meeting with one person right now, and then also the mayor's office has a person who seems to be an expert on dealing with audit scopes, and so he's also going to be joining us. So the two of them are going to be in that initial meeting working with the data, and then I'm not really sure what will happen after that, so I'll report back to you on how that goes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Anything else? All right.
Okay.
No, actually, we have a comment from Fred Escobar of President of United Firefighters Los Angeles, Local 112.
Chief Terrazas, good morning again. President Ibarra, Honorable Commissioners, City Attorney Iselia. Freddie Escobar, President of United Firefighters of Los Angeles City, Local 112, representing the 3,300 firefighters, paramedic, dispatchers, inspectors, and pilots of the fire department. UFLAC supports the recommendation of these audits because we believe that the training and recruitment in our drill tower should be the highest standard. UFLAC is proud of the impeccable training record and level of excellence that the LAFD has earned amongst its peers. We believe that our reputation as the nation's premier fire department comes with the expectation that our members should perform and meet the highest standards. What we do not support is any lowering of standard or politicizing our standards that could potentially put our members at risk. We thank you and look forward to continuing this vital work in cooperation with the department and this commission to ensure we stay as the gold standard in fire safety. Chief Terrazas, your command staff, commissioners, we thank you for your continuous support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we can vote.
Okay, move to adopt the recommendation for item 5B.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we have no public comment, so we're done. We can adjourn.
Okay, move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.